everyone. I hope you all are doing good. In today's video, we are going to start our journey, and the first thing that we are going to understand is the introduction to programming and Python fundamentals. So this is our first step towards the software development journey. So let's go ahead. So particularly in this class, what we are going to cover is what is a programming language, what is low level versus high level programming language. Then we will be going through things like what is a compiler, what is an interpreter, and what is the difference between both of them. And later on in this video, we are going to cover the very lame basics of Python, that are like what are variables, what are keywords, what are identifiers, and what are comments. So let's start with the journey. So first of all, you will be thinking like, what is a programming language? So programming language is basically instructions that we provide to the computer to execute some tasks. So it is the way how humans communicate with the computers to create the software applications and to get the multiple things done. There are multiple programming languages, but we will be dividing them into two as of now, that are low level languages and high level languages. So when we are talking about the low level languages, so these low level languages are the one which are mostly understandable by the machines. So this can be a binary language or something. And when we are talking about a high level language, so high level languages are something that humans can understand. It is like very readable format like basic English, and it's easy to understand the things. So when we are talking about the computer memory, so in the computer memory, whatever sits in the form of binary codes. So this is how it looks like, and you can understand like reading it is very complex for you. So that's the thing why we have high level programming languages. So high level programming languages are something which is having a similar English friendly structure, and it can run on Windows, Mac, Linux without any like changes. And there are multiple programming languages that you all will be knowing, that are Python, C, C++, Java, JavaScript, and many more. But when we are talking about these things, so like we will write our code in a high level language, and a compiler or an interpreter will convert the high level language code to the low level language code. We are going to cover what is a compiler, what is an interpreter in the ahead going part like of this video, but just for your understanding, I wanted to tell this thing. So the thing is straight, like readability is very high in the like high level languages, and readability is very low in the low level languages. When we are talking about the execution speed, then the execution speed in the high level languages is slow. Why? Because it needs a translation. I already told there needs to be a compiler or interpreter between them to convert the high level code to a low level code that machine should be understanding. Because of that sake, the speed gets compromised. But when we are talking about the low level language, then the execution is very faster. Why? Because computer directly can understand what you are talking, and it can get your task done. So same thing as I told before. So high level languages are platform independent, while the low level languages are machine dependent. They highly depend on the machine architecture and everything. So when we are talking about the hardware knowledge, so you don't need to have any hardware knowledge when we are talking about any of our high level programming languages. But when we are talking about the low level programming languages, so you should be having a okay or understandable knowledge of the architecture. So let's go ahead. So what is a compiler? I already told the way from which we convert our high level language to a low level language goes through compilers and interpreters. But what is a compiler and what is an interpreter? Let's go through their definitions first, then we will be going through their differences. So when we are talking about the compiler, so what a compiler does is like it executes the entire code in one go. And while the analysis time may be little slower, but the execution time is very fast in the compiler. And the examples of some of the compilers are C and C++. So how the errors are handled, like whenever you give a C++ code, when you just enter it, so all the errors to you are given at once. So this is how compiler works. But when we talk about the interpreter thing, so interpreter is the one which executes the code line by line. So what happens is, like, if there is an error in the first line, it won't give me the error in the third line. First of all, you have to fix the error in the first line, then it will go to the third line, then it will be going to the ahead stages of the code. Some of the examples of interpreter like using languages are Python and JavaScript. So interpreter is slower compared to compiler. But then a question raises, like, why we are using Python if it is slower to C and C++? So the answer will be given later. You just stay tuned. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't need to know any prior information, like for the coding purpose, for anything. You just need to stay tuned. I will be teaching you each and everything in detail. So first thing that I told was compiler, then I told interpreter. Now let's go to the differences. So as I told, the whole code is run at once at the compiler, and when we are talking about the interpreter, it runs the code line by line. Compiler is having a high execution speed and the interpreter is having a very slow execution speed. Errors, as I told, is like reports all errors at the end and stops at the first error encountered. This is about interpreter. And when we are talking about debugging, so debugging can be hard and debugging can be easy in the interpreter. So usage, if you will see, so compiler used languages are C and C++, whereas the languages that are using interpreter in the backend are Python and Ruby. So now let's go to our topic and the major things that we are gonna cover. Everything that is totally gonna be there in Python. So what is Python? So Python is basically a high-level general purpose programming language that is designed for readability and it is very easy to use. So it is an object-oriented programming language that has extensive library support and it is very beginner friendly. So when I'm talking about Python, it is having one of the most simplest syntax that is there in any programming language that at least I came across. So that's the thing why we will be doing this whole series in Python. And other than that, it is easy, but also it is one of the massive programming languages because it has its application in web development, in whatever we say AI ML things, whatever data science and all, whatever things are happening. So most of the things are happening with the help of Python, and there is a lot of code courses available and lot of extensive support, I can say, for Python. So it is ready to use code for AI, web and automation things. It is a versatile language, one language for everything from data to web. So I already told it is one of the most strongest languages that I know. So it is used for it can be used for everything. So that's the reason Python is one of the most popular programming languages in the current day. So when we are talking about the history of Python, so this is Guido van Rossum. He has created Python language in 1989. He's from Netherlands, and I believe currently he is working with Microsoft. So this is just a basic history of Python, when it was invented and who has invented it. Let's go to the applications of Python. So Python is basically used in AI, ML and other things, in the web development also, and in the cyber security things also. Python is getting used. So you will never regret learning it, because in the ahead going time you will be definitely using it in multiple of your things. So there's no regret to learn Python. If you want to switch from one technology to other technology also, it will be one of the most helpful things you will be having in hand. So let's write our first program. So here you can see on my screen, we are going to print the first program, that is hello world. So in this whole course, I'm going to try and use only Google Colab. Why? Because I don't need to download anything prior to this, and this is one of the best resources available in the web for running any type of code in Python at least. So I'll be just giving my print statement here. You can see sorry, there is a space, so you should be very much careful about the syntaxings. Okay, so as you can see, I got an error because there was an extra space there. So hello world, so something like this. I'm just gonna run it, so you can see my output says hello world. So what the print statement is actually used for, so whatever you need to type on the console is given with the help of print statement most of the times. And when you are talking about this string, so what this string is, whatever is inside the double quotes is the string. And like when you want to type something like enter a number or something, you don't want any like calculations to be done, anything to be done, whatever the hard coded thing is there, same thing you want to get on the console for getting an output or to show anything. So in that times you can use a string, and whatever you write exactly in the strings will be getting inside printed in our console same. So that's the reason of print statement. It is just to print whatever you want, whether it can be other things, we will be discussing about the things, but for now whatever I'm typing here, it's getting printed. Here we can write the name of our YouTube channel also. BrainForge. So let's run it. So you can see this is how it works. Let's go ahead. So what are variables? When we are talking about variables, so variable is a like container, you can say, or a storage space where you will be storing your data. So data can be of multiple data types that we will be covering in the next video, but for giving you an example, I will just write a code. Like suppose here maths is a subject where a student may have scored some 90 marks, then we will be giving English as a subject and he has scored somewhere around 85 marks. That's just an assumption. Okay, so we will be calculating the average. You can see the whole code like literally feels like a simple mathematical equation. There's no need to like bother more about how the things will look, how anything is. So that's very simple. That's why I told Python is one of the most simplest languages that you can find in today's era. So I have given my average variable and I will just be printing the value of my average variable. So I'll be running it. For running, mostly you can use the control enter whatever is in your keyboard, so it will be the easiest way to run. So this is how it's getting printed. So if I will show you a thing like how it is actually looking in the memory. So in memory there is a space getting created in when we are defining any variable. So let's take an example. Let's copy this because I was having 3 variables. Okay, so that's the reason I'm telling that I'll copy this. Okay, so my first variable was maths. So in the maths variable, I have stored the value of 90, and then when these are some of the memory cells you can consider in this. Like if I will give, so here it will be English, which has a value of something like 85, and then we have our average. So average is also getting printed here like this. Like it will be storing 87.5 directly. It is like not max and some values, it's not gonna get stored. It's basically direct calculations will be done, and directly 87.5 number, that is the data that we are having, will get stored inside the memory of Python. So this is the work of a variable. Whenever you want to store anything in the memory of Python, so you will be assigning them inside some variables so that you can use it later in the required aspect. So whenever you require to use the things again, for that you will be creating some variables. Okay, so this is how it works. So let's go ahead in our topic. So as I told, the variables can be of multiple data types, which are like integer, float, string and all. We'll be discussing them in the very next video of this course. So I hope you all see that video also once you are completed with these things. So let's go ahead. So these are some Python keywords, but before going to keywords, I will just show you what an identifier is. Okay. So when we are talking about this maths, so maths is basically a subject, and the name of the subject is maths. So let's take it as an example of human being also. So when I'm talking about someone named as Karan or something, so Karan is a human, but the name of Karan is an identifier. So when we are talking about the larger terminology, like what is the thing, so it is variable. So Karan is a human, so and the human is a variable. But when we are talking about the identifier, so the Karan, the name of the specific person, is called as the identifier. So the name of a specific variable is also called as an identifier. So you can see the identifier has some rules actually. So whenever we are talking about an identifier or a variable, so how it is, like some rules to define the identifiers are, suppose you want to store the data of one student 1. So this is not a correct way to store the value. You will be telling like, but I have written student 1. Yeah, but the thing is, in Python, spaces are not accepted between a variable. So if you write something like this is acceptable. But if there's a confusion and you want still to separate it, you can have an underscore here. That is totally acceptable thing. And when we are talking about like how to define an identifier, so there are things like letters you can use from A to Z capital, A to Z small, and digits also you can use from 0 to 9, and even you can use underscore also. So let's go to the topic again. So this is the way you can define the student 1. And one more thing, like you can't define the numeric value in ahead of the code. It will still be passing you some error. So whenever you're telling like you want to define a number, you should be defining it somewhere in the middle, or you can define it somewhere in the last, but you should not be doing it in the end, in the start of the identifier. Okay. So, and one more thing, like this separator is also not allowed, whatever the minus separator you guys call. So this is also not allowed. So why it is not allowed? Because it is taking it as something like a minus of something, like student is a variable and minus this and this. So you should not be using this also. Okay. And other thing is yeah, so now I will be moving like what are keywords. So basically when you are like working on something, so this is student, and if suppose I give the student name as and, so there are some works of Python. Obviously we are learning Python, so we will be dealing with something. If I have to do something, so I have to check like this should also be there and this should also be there. So in that terms I can't use and as a name of a variable. So that is the reason why we have some 35 keywords in Python, and we should never be using them as the name of our identifier. So that is the thing. That's why I told you the keywords later. And the keywords are the reserved words that have a special meaning in the Python interpreter. So that's the reason why we should not be using this like keywords as the name of our identifiers or variables. Let's go to the last topic of the day, that is comments in Python. So what are comments in Python? Let me just go back to my code, whatever I had written. So you can see here, like if you are the person who is checking my code first time, you will be seeing like, okay, this is something like this guy has written some code for like calculating the average of marks, but whose marks it is, I don't know. So in that terms, what you can do, if the student name is not required as a part of the variable, you can just write it as a comment. These are marks of Ria from class 6, something like that. And when I will be running this, I will not be getting this comment as an output. Why? Because this is a comment just I want to show to the third person, whoever is like reading my code, so that he should understand what my code is doing. Or suppose like I can add one more thing like this code will calculate the average of marks for the student, something like that. And this is a single line comment, but we can give some multiple lines of comment also. For that, what we have to do is we have to give the triple quotes. Okay, so I will be giving some triple quotes, and I will be writing like this is suppose something I'm writing, and so this is something what I've written. So when I run it, so I don't get these things printed in my output. Why? Because these things are like not treated by Python as something. These are just comments that should be like there in the code for the reading purpose of the other person, whoever is like analyzing your code. So that is the thing. So comments are the notes that are ignored by the interpreter. They explain what the code does. Why to use them? Because it makes our code more readable, helpful for the other persons in the team to get the knowledge of what you have done, and disabling to code blocks temporarily. So that's all about today's class. I hope you all enjoyed our very first lecture of starting the DSA series for becoming an SDE. But in this video you have just understand some basics, and I hope we will be becoming the more better version of ourselves in the later stages of the whole playlist as it continues. So thank you everyone, God bless you all, and thanks for watching.